So here we are. Another new Doom game on the horizon, another chance to blow 7 shades of shit out of demonic hellspawn, with weapons so outlandish they wouldn't look out of place grafted to the side of Sagrada Familia. And of course, there's a whole new soundtrack for fans to get stuck into. Except this time, things are different. Mick Gordon is long out of the picture after his rather public falling out with Bethesda and id Software, and in come a new team that most of you probably haven't even heard of. Some fans may be worried about this. Losing the auteur who created a generational soundtrack and a seminal moment in gaming as a whole could mean losing a huge part of what made the Doom reboot game so special. But I'm here to tell you not to worry, because things are going to be okay. First, let's see how we got to this point. Even before Doom 2016 released, id Software were keen to hype up how important the soundtrack to the Doom franchise is. A series of short videos featuring the relatively unknown producer Mick Gordon started dropping during the development, showing the quite frankly extraordinary lengths he was going to create something truly special with Doom's soundtrack, including 9-string guitars, old Soviet synthesizers from before the Berlin Wall fell, and even putting demonic messages into the audio's waveforms. When the game launched in May 2016, players could immediately see the effort was worth it. Notwithstanding the fact the game was well designed and incredibly fun to play, the massive riffs and brutal heavy drops became immediately iconic, and paired perfectly with the visceral gameplay. Fans fell in love with the soundtrack, with many downloading the OST and listening to it on repeat. id really had something special on their hands. Following up Doom 2016 with Doom Eternal was no easy feat, but Mick Gordon was once again on board, this time bringing in a whole heavy metal choir of voices to amplify the soundtrack's intensity. But unfortunately, this is where things started to go sour. In the run-up to Doom Eternal's release, it was clear things weren't right. It was announced the OST had a delayed launch to a month after the game was planned to release. This was strange, as most soundtracks release at the same time as the game. Further too, eagle-eared fans noticed the mixes weren't up to the standard of the previous Doom game, with many tracks heavily compressed or gain boosted to the point of distorting. As it turned out, these tracks hadn't actually been mixed by Mick Gordon at all, but instead by an audio director inside id called Chad Mossholder, who had little experience working with these kinds of tracks. Now, the reasons for this have been covered extensively elsewhere, but the long and short of it is that Mick Gordon was alleged to have missed deadlines and been constantly delayed, and id decided to push forward and release the OST without his consent. Now, I'll leave it up to you to decide where you believe the fault lies here, but either way, Gordon announced he wouldn't work with id any longer after Doom Eternal, which was a problem, because there were still 2 DLC expansion packs to produce. So, in came Andrew Holsholt, who most notably had produced the soundtracks to Dusk and Medieval, and more appropriately, the fan-made Brutal Doom mod, which, by the way, if you're a fan of the OG Doom, you have to check out. He worked on the 2 Ancient Gods DLCs, and did an excellent job, managing to follow the precedent that Gordon had set. So, surely when the time came for the next full game, id would want to bring them back. Well, apparently not, because instead they've turned to a production team whose previous works include Grounded and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Understandably, upon this announcement, some fans were a bit concerned. And you can understand why. Throughout gaming history, there have been iconic pieces of music that became synonymous with their titles. That's Super Mario intro music, the beautiful Halo title theme, those infectious bleep bloops as the Tetris blocks fall down. All pieces that have come to define video game music in their own way. But Doom soundtracks have always hit different. As far back as the first game in 1993, the 32-bit tracks that aped metal bands of the 80s like Slayer and Metallica were a huge part of what made the game so successful, and still fondly remembered to this day. Doom 2016 is no different in that regard, taking the best of modern metal bands and incorporating it into its demon-destroying world. I mean, just tell me you don't want to go apeshit when this drops. Mick Gordon's work has become arguably the most famous video game soundtrack of the modern era. The reasons for this are twofold. Firstly, metalheads will flock to anything vaguely metal related and shout about it from the rooftops. Take it from me, as a metalhead myself, I will not shut up about the latest metal band out of India or the fact a deep cut Dying Fetus song featured on a South Park episode a few years ago.
And a 1, and a 2, and a...
Like when they did that Master of Puppets bit on Stranger Things, the whole metal community were like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you how good this shit is, but you wouldn't listen to us for f***'s sake. But we're passionate outsiders, is what I mean. So anything even vaguely appealing to non-metalheads that includes heavy breakdowns and frantic thrash guitar is going to have a guaranteed rabid audience. But secondly, in many ways, Doom is its soundtrack. The fast-paced frenetic gameplay, intense demon smashing and visceral blood and guts that make Doom so memorable would have far less impact with any other kind of soundtrack. The two are intertwined to such an extent that you just can't have one without the other. In fact, why don't we see for ourselves? Firstly, here's a small bit of Doom Eternal with the usual soundtrack. Okay, now let's replace the music with something less loud. See what I mean? Doom's soundtrack is so beloved that it actually turned its creator into a star in his own right. Mick Gordon went from being a composer who'd quietly worked on games like Killer Instinct and Destroy All Humans to a breakout star playing to adoring crowds overnight. How many other video game music creators can you say that about? In fact, how many can you even name at all? Sure, you'll have one or two of your favourites that you may know, but it won't be many. And yet Mick Gordon's name is now as synonymous to Doom as id veterans like John Carmack, Marty Stratton, and indeed, John Romero. That's the power of Doom's soundtrack. So it's understandable why some may be cautious about whoever is coming in to replace him. But I'm here to tell you not to worry, because the soundtrack is in good hands. Finishing Move is a video game audio production studio who've actually been around for some time now. Made up of these four very serious men, Jay, Alex, and a pair of Bryans, they've worked on some massive games in the past, including the Halo Master Chief Collection, Borderlands 3, and the Callisto Protocol. They've been nominated for a whole bunch of awards, even winning a Game Audio Network Guild Award back in 2015. So they've got a good CV. But you may notice something about all their previous work. It's not exactly metal. In fact, pretty much everything these guys have ever worked on fits far more into the electronic space than anything else. Can we trust such an important aspect of Doom games to a group of people who've never really worked in this space before? But here's the thing, Mick Gordon wasn't exactly a leading light in metal either. Sure, he listened to the likes of Nine Inch Nails and Metallica back in his youth, but didn't most rebellious teenagers? According to his bio, in his youth he was more focused on jazz and blues rather than thrash and deathcore, and had a penchant for electronic music in his earlier career. And yet he was still able to master the crushing riffs, blasting beats and overwhelming noise that is the metal genre anyway. What's to say Finishing Move can't do the same? And if anything, they've already got a template from which to work. The foundations are already there, so the chaps have the opportunity to put their own spin on things, develop on existing ideas, and include new instruments and sounds. Just so long as we still get that metal element in there, I think fans will be happy. And new ideas are always welcome. From what we've seen so far, Finishing Move are experimenting with some cool ideas. Like, I have no idea what this instrument is, but it sounds great and I want to hear more of it. Plus, with this newest installment taking influence from medieval fantasy and folklore, bringing in fresh perspectives who can focus on the sounds of this time period, may give them an advantage in terms of where they take it. And ultimately, these guys have been making video game music for years. They're trusted by some of the biggest companies, they've adapted to other genres, and they've nailed those as well. There's no reason why they can't get it right with Doom the Dark Ages either.